This podcast is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. Learn more at listenfrederick.com.
Welcome to the award-winning Rich in Life podcast. We're the podcast that dives deep into the true meaning of wealth. We're going beyond money. We're going into mindset, purpose, and the choices that shape our success. In each episode, we're going to bring you inspiring stories, expert insights, and the real conversation to help you build a life that's rich in every way. So get ready to elevate your thinking, embrace new possibilities, and unlock the wealth that truly matters. So sit back, tune in, and let's learn how to be rich in life. Let's start this episode with a question that might make you slightly uncomfortable. If you stopped achieving for a year, who would you be? Not theoretically. Like if you did not grow the business, if you did not hit new milestones, if you did not optimize your body, if you did not improve your home, and if you did not level up anything, who would you be? For a lot of high achieving people, those questions create anxiety almost immediately. And I want you to let me know if it did. And that reaction tells you something. There's research in psychology around something called contingent self-worth. It basically means that your sense of value is tied to specific conditions. Things like achievement, approval, productivity, appearance. Studies from researchers at the University of Michigan found that people whose self-worth is heavily tied to achievements experience higher anxiety, more burnout, and bigger emotional crashes when performance dips. Does that resonate with anyone? Do you feel like your worth is tied to specific achievements or specific values of things that you've done? In other words, basically when your identity is fused with output, when you rest feels threatening. And that has nothing to do with a time management issue, not at all. That actually has to do with an identity issue. And most ambitious people never consciously decide to tie their worth to their output. It just happens. It's not something we decide to do. And maybe you were praised for being smart in school. Maybe your parents praised you for being responsible of your younger siblings. Maybe, you felt praised for being ahead or for being the one who could handle things. You just took it upon yourself to get things done. Maybe you learned early that achievement created safety. Things like good grades meant approval. Success meant validation. Productivity meant you were valuable. And over time, ambition just stopped being something that you did, and it just became who you are. The other day, I was talking to a client who said something in one of our meetings that I want to share with you. She said, if I'm not moving forward, I feel like I'm sliding backwards. That sentence is so revealing because growth had become her emotional regulation. As long as the business was expanding, she felt secure. As long as she was hitting goals, she felt grounded. And as long as she was achieving, she felt worthy. Achieving to her made her feel something about who she was as a person. But the second things plateaued for her or things weren't improving, she literally spiraled. And not because her business was unstable, but because her identity was unstable. But have you noticed that the world actually rewards this? You get praised and get a raise for your worth ethic. You get admired for your discipline when you stay late after work or you're sending that email at 8 o'clock at night. You get known as the driven one. But no one actually pulls you aside and says, hey, I think your nervous system is actually attached to your revenue. To people on the outside, it just looks like ambition to them. It looks like drive. But in the inside to you, it feels like pressure. Here's what this looked like in her real life. She could not enjoy a good revenue-producing month in her business without immediately setting a bigger target. So instead of celebrating the milestone that she reached, the goal that she reached, she immediately went into, great, check mark, we achieved that, now on to the next goal, on to the next target. She could not take a full weekend off without feeling vaguely guilty that she should be doing something. Achievement did not feel satisfying for her, but it did feel stabilizing. And that's the difference. When your worth is tied to output, you're not building from inspiration like we talked about in the last episode. You're building from self-protection. In this situation, what does transformation actually look like, right? Because in the last episode, we talked about who you've become, who your identity is. But now we need to transform what this looks like. And it doesn't look like becoming less ambitious. It looks like separating who you are from what you produce. Does that make sense? You are not the outcome of your business or the outcome of your sales or the outcome of your team. That is not your identity. And so for her, that started in small, to anyone else in invisible ways. She stopped setting a new goal the same week she hit one. We had to immediately take that off the plate. You have to just sit in what you've achieved and appreciate it, how you got to that point. She took one Friday off a month and didn't make up for it on Saturday. She truly just left the day open for maybe self-care, for some family time, if her kids had off school. And she began tracking energy and fulfillment alongside of her revenue, not in place of, not adding on, but fulfillment alongside her revenue. And don't get me wrong, she was super uncomfortable. The resistance on this was like nothing else because she essentially felt like she was losing her identity because the outcome became who she was. And she actually described it as feeling untethered. Because if you're not measuring yourself by your output, which is what she had been doing this whole time, you have to find a new metric. How are you now measuring yourself? Eventually, she told me that for the first time, her business feels like something she runs, not something that runs her. And I know that we've all been there where we feel like our business is running us versus the other way around. And that truly is the payoff, right, of doing this work. When your worth is no longer fused with your output. You can have a slow season without spiraling. You can rest without feeling guilty. It's actually required. You can choose sustainability over speed, and you can let something plateau without panicking. These are all the ebbs and flows of life and business and hitting goals. And with all of this, and through these valleys and peaks, your ambition becomes cleaner and clearer. It's no longer trying to prove that you are enough by a number. It's simply expressing who you are. And that energy is completely different. So here's something practical that I want to give you for this week. Pay attention this week to your emotional reaction when something slows down. If you have a slower sales week, if you have a quieter inbox, if you have a rest day, or if you have a missed workout, I want you to note how you feel. Does it feel neutral? Does it feel like a threat? And your reaction will actually tell you whether your worth is attached to these outcomes. And if it is, that's totally understandable. But it's also adjustable. It's not either or, it's and. Capacity expands when your nervous system is not constantly trying to earn your value. That is psychological freedom. And that freedom changes how you build a rich life.